Welcome to the chaos sector. We return to the matrix. Now, apparently, Bethany did call and speak to dispatch. No problem in correcting that. We report from a lens of knowing there was a frame, so it's always the element of deception. If the call consisted of Bethany speaking to dispatch with that identification, then sure. Yet we have examined several excerpts, and the call starts off with dispatch asking what is the location of the emergency, and a female response.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
At no point was Bethany identified, and then the female neighbor takes over the call. Some claim that Hunter mentioned Bethany's name when he stated he can't speak to dispatch, yet we never heard him say her name during that segment.
You talk to them, say, I can't talk to them, they need you to talk to them.
Hello.
Okay.
We can accept that she was there, but based on the audio released, Bethany's name was never mentioned, only when Dylan stated, quote, "Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check," unquote.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check. Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check.
Nevertheless, they never notified dispatch that there were deceased or injured housemates in the home. And this is approximately 7 to 8 hours after the initial concerns came about, according to the text messages. With that being said, we will ask, does everyone think Bethany was actually involved? Or was she just a part of covering everything up? Again, the reason we make a distinction between the two is because of their whereabouts. Bethany's whereabouts were confirmed to be at the Sigma Chi party, while Dylan's whereabouts were unknown. This is very important, and it creates separation between the two. Although we can all agree that Bethany possibly, keyword, possibly, could be involved, we know for certain that Dylan was involved, due to her whereabouts not being provided. Another issue is that in prior reports it lists Bethany as a pie fight, but not Dylan. We went over this, and it only magnified the suspicion about Dylan. You know, there were segments of that audio that sounded pre-recorded. It was also segments that sounded as if there were two different physical locations. When did Hunter and Emily arrive at the home? When did the next-door neighbors arrive as well? Based on the text messages unsealed, Dylan called Emily around 11:50 a.m. Bethany allegedly called around 5 minutes later. Now in this setting, it would suggest that Hunter and Emily arrived shortly after that call around 11:50 a.m., right? But this would also suggest that within this time frame, Dylan and Bethany had started to become more concerned. Yet this does not align with the time frame they were texting each other from approximately 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. What exactly would they be doing from this time frame if they hadn't decided to investigate the dead silence in the home? You text everyone, they don't respond. You call everyone, they don't respond. Oh, they're probably all asleep. Okay, no worries. But this is not what the setting was, remember? They were texting from a place of concern based on the text messages. The texting details that Bethany told Dylan to come to her bedroom, quickly. So obviously they were concerned, right? They were scared, right? Scared of what exactly? Rhetorical. They were scared that their housemates were murdered. Now with this fact, which is a fact by the way, with this fact, we know that Dylan had called Emily earlier than 11:50 a.m. Mind you, based on those text messages, they never went to sleep. What about the inner circle of peers, like the ones who, I don't know, stayed on King Road, and one of them was an ex-boyfriend of Kaylee? Yet, based on the text messages, there is no indication that Dylan or Bethany had observed anything, such as going into the bedrooms to see their housemates, quote, unconscious. Well, it's nested in those Snapchat messages, which would reveal exactly when the housemates were discovered deceased. Again, Katie made a grave mistake in her interview with ABC News. She claimed to call Kaylee around 10 a.m. to see if she was okay. This would prove that Dylan and Bethany were aware that Kaylee and Madison were also, quote, unconscious. Mind you, for Katie to be concerned about Kaylee specifically, then the information relayed out from that home was about Kaylee also. Kaylee and Madison upstairs unconscious. Okay, now if we link this to the 911 phone call, why didn't Dylan or anyone else who took the phone mention that there were multiple housemates, quote, unconscious? These rhetorical questions are to expose the call. It's not authentic, due to all of the evidence that proved the call itself would have been made approximately 4 hours earlier. And that's just giving them a benefit of the doubt. What about the time frame in the wee hours of the night? Let's rewind it all. If the anonymous male college student stated the news went out around 8 a.m., then this means the housemates were literally sitting there for hours before calling 911. They called their peers, relayed the information via social media before calling 911. As we know, the reason for this is to prepare to cover everything up. Came up with the idea that basically they woke up and discovered their housemate, quote, unconscious, and proceed to act that emotional hysteria out in the call to dispatch.
She's not waking up.
Okay.
Yeah, as we mentioned, releasing that audio only exposes the cover-up, just throwing Dylan and Bethany under the bus with no remorse, I see. A fake 911 call, it's that simple. It was rehearsed to create a scenario that Dylan and Bethany were oblivious to what had unfolded that night. Without Bethany's identity confirmed by her in the 911 call, we still have to give logic to Dylan pretended she was there. If Bethany identified herself like Dylan did, then we will concede. If we miss that portion of the call, we'll correct it. But from what we've examined, Bethany never identified herself in that call, nor did Hunter mention her name. The only one who mentioned Bethany was Dylan, and we all know Dylan is involved. And if Bethany has exculpatory evidence, then obviously Dylan would know she has that same exculpatory evidence, you see. Ultimately, the point is the call itself was not a real-time discovery.
It's a fake call, or rather, a call made to cover up the truth. Keep in mind, while this call had gone out, everyone in town was aware that the housemates had been attacked or murdered. This was known before the call went out, hours prior. Again, if Bethany has exculpatory evidence, which the defense claims is specific to her experience alone, and it will exonerate Kohberger, what does this say about the setting in the home? Remember, if Bethany and Dylan were colluding together, then Bethany's affidavit would support Dylan's regarding the accounts of what unfolded that night. The text messages create that scenario, but Bethany's official affidavit says nothing about seeing a lone male in black clothing. When asked about that night, Bethany would say, quote, Dylan said that she saw a man in all black with a mask on his face, walking past her, and I told her to come to my room after he left. We were scared because we didn't know who it was, unquote. This would have been released right along with Dylan's affidavit, yet Bethany's affidavit remains a secret for good reasons. The claim she saw a naked man. How is that the only thing significant about Bethany's accounts of that night? When did she see this? What else was going on in the home? All of these questions were not answered, because that never happened. It was created to support the kill kit narrative, because they had to justify how Kohberger left no real DNA behind. You see, their stories don't match up, because Bethany's story doesn't contain anything substantial to support Dylan's story, which has a specific description of the alleged lone killer. Yet Bethany had been summoned to testify in the preliminary hearings, due to what she knew. This would be exculpatory evidence, right? Now we ask this question to put it into perspective. If Bethany has this exculpatory evidence, which conflicts with Dylan's accounts, doesn't this mean they have two different accounts of what happened that night? And if they have two different accounts of what happened that night, would Bethany sit around with Dylan in that home, who is clearly covering up the murders? The only way she would do this is out of fear. That's understandable. But then this would mean, even if she did make the call, it's almost threat of coercion. The way Dylan tells her, come on Bethany, we gotta go check, indicates that Dylan was somewhat intimidating to Bethany.
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check.
In this setting, Bethany is following. Yes, she is following Dylan around.
Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check.
Listening to it more and more, it sounds like Dylan is trying to force Bethany to go with her. Yet, why does she need Bethany specifically to go check? Also, at this point, what exactly is everyone else doing in the home, to where they weren't already checking on the housemates while Dylan was on the phone? Mind you, it was already established that someone was unconscious, right? Dispatch doesn't know this, but everyone in the home does, you see. The point here is that there were 4 other people in the home, excluding Bethany for a moment. Hunter and Emily and 2 neighbors. What exactly were they doing during this time frame? Based on dispatch speaking to Dylan about checking on the housemaid, it creates the setting in the home that it wasn't until that moment everyone jumped into action, where they all of a sudden went to go check on the housemates. Come on, that makes no sense, especially since they were all there prior to the call, and that's what the damn call was about. Also, at the end, Dylan tells the alleged Bethany, quote, "We have to," unquote.
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, Bethany, we gotta go check. But we have to.
So apparently Bethany didn't want to go check, right? She's dragging Bethany along with her, despite not wanting to go. In addition, Dylan is on the phone with dispatch, not Bethany. Dispatch instructed Dylan to go check, because she is in communication with her. Dylan, though, wants someone else to go with her. We could see if they were there alone, a bit of, quote, fear would exist. But there's 4 other people in the home. Why so frightened to go check by yourself? And then you're not checking anyway. The males in the home were the ones who checked. So why focus on Bethany so much? This is a criminal mind, one that plots and schemes. Yes, Bethany was with me, you see? Maybe Dylan made Bethany call 911 to carry out the plan. Maybe Dylan convinced her to get the tattoos as a symbol to never snitch. We've always stated that Dylan appeared to be the troublemaker in that home. And we never really dug into her little drug-peddling boyfriend Quinn, neither, or his father, and their ties to the drug cartels. And this brings Bonnie and Clyde back into the spotlight. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and suggest that Dylan, Quinn, Bonnie, and Clyde were all there that night. Bethany doesn't seem to have many friends outside of that home, perhaps her sorority sisters. But there hasn't been much dug up on Bethany and her associations that prove she has criminal ties. Now, the element of covering up the murders is a problem. We understand the fear of snitching, the fear of what you witness as young college students. We don't condone covering it up, but we understand. That is totally different from being a part of the actual murders, though. And then compound that with covering it up. Fire, something that burns if you get too close. And unfortunately, those housemates got too close to that fire. And no one was there to extinguish it, or even prevent it from happening in the first place. As far as if Bethany was there, well, it's possible, but we still doubt it until proof is presented.
Examining the first female, it does sound like she is actually crying. You hear what sounds like sniffling, and her voice cracked often. This could be Bethany, but if that was Bethany, then it would still justify our belief that she had left the home. That real emotion would be Bethany coming back to the home and seeing her deceased housemates. But of course, she is outnumbered, meaning she has to go along with the plan. So she can't say that her housemates are dead. She has to think of another way to notify dispatch of the emergency. This is why she states, quote, "Something happened in our home." The term something is describing an act of violence, not that someone is passed out, you see. Let's listen closely, as it does sound like someone who is genuinely emotional.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
The cracking of her voice when stating the address sounds authentic. It doesn't sound like she's pretending to be emotional.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
The thing about one's emotional state, that being sorrow, you can't control how you speak. So while trying to do so, the emotions affect how you speak. Also, it sounds like sniffling, which is another effect of being emotional.
1122.
Something that's very difficult to fake. The reason being, well, the sniffling is due to a runny nose, and that's something you can't fake neither. Examining this portion a bit more, the female, who we will suggest, is Bethany for the sake of this analysis. We can hear her trying to compose herself to speak to dispatch.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Yet if we examine Dylan, well, she doesn't sound authentic to the chaos. She's trying to mimic the emotional state of Bethany, who is genuinely hurting.
Hi, this is...
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around.
The way she says, quote, "Hi, this is Dylan," sounded very casual.
Hi, this is...
And are you with the...
And you see, the reason it has a casual tone, instead of a hysterical tone like Bethany,
112.
is because her brain can't produce that same reality of hysteria, because she is linked to the very setting in the home. Her reality is totally different from Bethany's, just like their accounts of that night.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Notice how Dylan is actually revealing the truth. Hidden in plain sight here, mentioning 4 a.m. is attributing Xana's, quote, unconscious state to the male dressed in all black wearing a mask. Okay, now if she is clear about this, then going back to that time frame, how do you explain why there wasn't any concern for Xana after that male left the home, when you didn't get a response from them soon after via text messages, pointing out that there was a male in the home, which you are attributing to the condition of Xana in connection to there being no response from her around 4 a.m. You have to explain what you were doing during that time frame, and why wasn't there a call hours prior? The condition of Xana at this point is the same condition hours prior, which you go check upon once there weren't any responses. Mind you, she can't rely on assuming Xana was asleep, because they kept attempting to contact the housemates, you see. If they assumed everyone was asleep, they would stop trying to contact them. So obviously they felt something was wrong, and feeling something was wrong would warrant them to investigate. That investigating doesn't take 7 to 8 hours to come to the conclusion they were, quote, unconscious. Now keep in mind, the neighbor also mentioned there was a male in the home the night prior. Bethany is not the source of that specific information, because it's not even supported in her affidavit. So it was Dylan who told her that. Now, isn't it ironic that you have one housemate claiming they saw a lone male in the home, while the other housemate's accounts do not support that claim, and this same claim was mentioned in the 911 call? What about the other males that were there? I mean, they left DNA behind, including blood on a stair rail and a glove outside of the home. How could Dylan forget to mention those males who were in the home that night? I guess it slipped her mind. Okay, the frame was already in the works before the murders, and the person framed was described in detail by one of the housemates, whose whereabouts were not provided prior to the murders. So if she's a suspect by default, due to her whereabouts being protected, do you honestly think she is genuinely hurt? Perhaps, but her guilty conscience is burning through her brain to the point, even if she was hurt, the reality of her guilt of being involved keeps her from having the same hysterical reaction, such as someone who wasn't involved. And if you add a bit of envy, dislike, animosity, and such, that contaminates one's heart, so it can't have the same compassion as another.
She's not waking up.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds very forced. I mean, let's be honest here. Dylan's emotional state is empty, quite simple. At the end, she asks, quote, what's wrong, in a high-pitched voice. But the high pitch isn't due to a sorrow, rather that high pitch is due to, take a wild guess, guilt. Dylan is asking a question she already knows the answer to, you see. This is why it sounds fake, because it's actually a defense mechanism to protect her guilt. One of the classic signs of someone being deceptive, lying, manipulating is a very high-pitched voice when confronted about an issue. In this scenario, the closer Dylan gets to those bedrooms, the higher the pitch of her voice, you see.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, thank you.
A moment of realizing what she has done as she is trying to maintain a level of sanity. I think I picked up on a real-time setting during the so-called discovery. If you listen closely, what seems to be Dylan whispering as she approaches, and then Hunter tells them to get out, right? Walking away, Dylan says okay, and now she's emotional, almost as if she's trying to explain herself. And Dylan says, quote, don't, as she approaches the bedroom. This could indicate that Dylan doesn't want Hunter to either overreact or even say something that would prove to dispatch that there was a murder. Dylan is in regret at this moment, feeling guilty for what happened. If you noticed, she is all of a sudden becoming very emotional, although there hasn't been any indication that Xana was harmed based on the setting, right? Dispatch may not know what's going on, and even Hunter and Emily may have just found out as they approached the bedroom. But Dylan knows what happened, and the guilt is starting to show in this call. It's subjective, of course, as many may think different. But due to her being a suspect, that moment could be Hunter scolding her, even though he obviously was aware. Dylan becomes more emotional, because that moment when Hunter told them to get out, you have to keep in mind Hunter was best friends with Ethan, and Emily was best friends with Xana. Although they both were friends with Dylan, they could have nothing to do with their friends' murders. There is a distinction here. Knowing about a danger your friends faced or may face is completely different than actually being a component of that danger. And the aftermath, well, it's very difficult to do the right thing, we understand. We are focusing on who is actually involved, and right now, Dylan is the link inside that home. And my colleagues mentioned the 4 a.m. timeframe Dylan spoke about. I picked up on another possible real-time setting. The female neighbor is explaining how Xana was drinking and had passed out, right? Well, another female, who could be Bethany, was saying no. Why would she say no? Because of what she is literally seeing in the home, a bloody massacre. But remember, she's outnumbered. They have decided not to mention this to dispatch. And as we all know, majority rules. But Bethany's compassion for her friends forced her to speak up. Let's examine that once more.
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the White, so we're next to them.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
What's your phone number?
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
If you listen carefully, when the neighbor gave that reason, Bethany said no. And there was damage control, as the neighbor decided to mention some male who was at the home last night. And sure enough, the person who provided that information, being Dylan, decides to speak to dispatch. The person who actually called 911, that being Bethany, was pushed to the side. In this setting, we can suggest that she was so emotional, she agreed to let someone else speak. But hearing the neighbor lie about the condition of Xana, Bethany cautiously said no.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
Now, you have Bethany, who is not really willing to go along with the lie, yet has no choice due to the overall situation. Ironic, going all the way back to our early episodes. We came to this very conclusion about Bethany. She wasn't really willing to go along with everything, but what else could she do? This is totally different from someone who made the decision to conspire against her housemates, and then put another housemate in a difficult spot and attach herself to her. Listen to this a few more times to really grasp the real-time setting in that home.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
The neighbor starts off saying, quote, one of our housemates, before she changed it. She had already conditioned her brain to follow the collective lie of one of those housemates partying last night and had passed out. Then after Bethany refuted that timidly, the neighbor started stuttering, mentioning some male at the home last night. You see, she felt the pressure of the lie, possibly being heard by dispatch. If you're explaining the condition of a housemate and the reason for it, and someone in the background says, no, which translates to, no, that's not what happened, and that's not the condition of that housemate, you will stutter and start to lose your composure. And this is why the neighbor decided to quickly give the phone to Dylan. Again, let's play that entire scenario out.
To make sure that I have it right.
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the White, so we're next to them.
I need someone to repeat.
Hold on, I caught something. And it could be very devastating. I can't confirm it, but it sounds like Bethany, who would be the female in the background, states something along the lines of, "You're going to tell them come inside," or "He's going to tell them come inside." Bethany is referring to someone or a group of people and asking will they come inside the home.
We live at the White, so we're next to them.
Now, not sure who this would be. Maybe this is Hunter and Emily knocking on the door. Not sure, but clearly Bethany is asking about someone coming inside the home. We've come to the conclusion that Hunter and Emily were there earlier, but maybe this is Hunter and Emily arriving at the home. Maybe it's Bonnie and Clyde, eager to know how the housemates are handling the aftermath. Who knows? Mind you, there are 4 housemates massacred during this call, and Bethany, based on her hysterical state, is actually pleading for something to be done about it. Let's listen to that very closely.
We live at the White, so we're next to them.
It sounds like he's going to tell them come inside. So a male in the home is perhaps interacting with others at the door. If the neighbours are already there, the female and the male, then perhaps this is Hunter and Emily that are knocking on the door. And what is happening with this updated analysis is the number of people at the home before the call was made is shrinking. Is it possible that Dylan was there by herself, called over the neighbours, convinced them to go with the story? Bethany arrives, freaks out, and decides to call 911. Dylan and those neighbours can't stop her from doing it because they have to call, right? And as a result, you have Bethany distraught, not really capable of speaking to dispatch. The female neighbour takes over, lies about Xana's condition. Bethany felt compelled to tell the truth. Then the female neighbour just blurted out something to deflect from what she stated. Now, due to Dylan already knowing who was responsible for the murders, she notified the female neighbour about it. And when Bethany refuted her claim about Xana, she blurted out that there was a male in the home last night. But in her panic, she is actually leading to the setting that Xana was harmed by that male, not passed out due to drinking last night. You see? This is what happens when you try to cover up the truth. It slips out from different crevices. Now let's listen to the entire chain of events.
The address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
What's your phone number?
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Hi, this is...
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around.
What do you guys think about this? Do you think Bethany was trying to tell the truth during this time frame? If she says no, which appears to be in response to what the female neighbour is saying about Xana, then Bethany was trying to tell the truth. Or at least felt like the truth should be told to dispatch. Now, one would say, well, once paramedics and authorities got there, the truth will be revealed anyway. Of course, but if they were notified about it, then this means the housemates knew there were murders. Completely different reality in the mainstream media, law enforcement, and within the courtroom. In addition, if they covered up the murders with the 911 call, what do you think authorities will do once they arrive and talk to those housemates? And here we go again, the difference between Bethany and Dylan. Authorities spoke to Bethany just like they spoke to Dylan. Yet Bethany has been essentially silenced while Dylan has provided the so-called witness accounts. Do you see the pattern? Bethany was also silenced during the 911 call in the home due to being outnumbered. And Dylan was throwing out claims about some guy in the home the night before, which is the same information included in her affidavit. Bethany agreed to meet with the defense and provide a testimony. Her lawyer resisted it. Everything was shut down, and the truth about that night, and also the truth about later that morning, was all swept under the rug. It's a clear indication over the years of our investigative work that Bethany was held hostage due to the truth, and Dylan was protected due to her involvement in the murders. It's funny how things work out. Because we initially claimed that call was fake, and even claimed that Bethany was not even there, made a correction based on the examination and revealed even more than the episode prior.
Yep, for Bethany to make the call, yet doesn't provide any tangible details about that night, we can assume she came back to the home. Dylan is the one who had the key witness accounts, right? Yet her activity throughout was primarily on social media. She never thought to call 911. In the setting where Bethany is at home with Dylan, what would warrant Bethany to call at 11:56 a.m. instead of earlier. So it seems Bethany had left and came back. This is when she called, due to what she witnessed. Now we're not saying she wasn't there overnight to at least know what happened, but after the murders, or even before that, Bethany may have left the home. For blood to be discovered on the stair rail between the first and second floor, a male had gone downstairs on the floor Bethany was on. Maybe she snuck out of the house while the attacks unfolded on the second and third floor. Nobody knows what happened. Everyone is trying to present the most logical theory. And we also have to address the text messages, because I believe some of them have been fabricated. Now, for Dylan to claim there was a male in the home around 4 a.m., once authorities arrived, she told them about that male. But Moscow PD is not stupid. They knew it was a multi-perp crime. Yet, they needed to cover it up. Again, Bethany's affidavit does not justify Dylan's affidavit. This is a major problem for the prosecution. And Bethany would also hear crying from Zana's bedroom, because wasn't she awake texting Dylan around 4 a.m.? You see, their accounts are completely different. This is why we feel Bethany had left the home and came back. Dylan wasn't going to call 911. She was too busy on social media. So the person who has the exculpatory evidence is the one who made the call and is the one who was being silenced during that call. I need you to truly grasp that setting in the home, because the mainstream media threw it out there just for sensationalism and to make the housemates appear innocent. It's a futile attempt, because the very public that is listening to that audio know that they are literally all in a home full of deceased housemates with blood everywhere. And Bethany didn't want everyone to lie about what happened. At the same time, there's not much she can do about it. The reason Batfield injected the phrase, "No, he was," into the response, and even claimed it was Dylan who said that, is because when the female neighbor is lying about Zana's condition, the individual refuting that would create a suspicion about what's going on. Remember, Batfield was one of the key sources of slandering Koberger's image, so of course she will create a narrative that it was Dylan who wanted to say there was a male in the home. But from our analysis, it was Bethany who said no, as in no. That is not the condition of Zana. Don't lie about it.
And she was drunk last night and she not wake me up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
We could be wrong. It could have been Dylan who said no. Yet it would only magnify that Zana was attacked by that male. And that just brings us right back to lying about the condition of Zana anyway. Too much fuckery to weed through. That's the problem. That's enough for now. This is the Chaos Sector.